Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about the Selzer poll from the state of Iowa. How this 3-point win in Iowa from America's most accurate pollster throughout the country, Selzer and her company, how that would translate nationwide to a Kamala Harris victory. Now, obviously, this got so much attention. This poll got instant attention because it shows Kamala Harris leading in a red state that wasn't even on our radar. Donald Trump won the state of Iowa in the 2020 election by 8 percentage points. It's going from +8 in 2020 to Democrat +3 in 2024. That's an 11-point shift towards the Democratic Party in just 4 years. But this isn't just any pollster. This is J. Ann Selzer, of course, sponsored by the Des Moines Register. This poll is famous because they get it spot on every single time. They got legendary status after being the only pollster to predict Obama's landslide victory in the 2008 Democratic Iowa caucus, but since then, they have retained that legendary status. You can see just last year in the 2022 Senate race, they projected that the incumbent Senator Chuck Grassley would win re-election by 12 points. Well, you know he won by exactly 12 points. In 2020, every poll said that Iowa was basically tied between Biden and Trump. Some polls had Biden up by a point or two. Some polls had Trump up by a point or two. And Selzer's final poll said that Trump would win by 7. He won by 8, basically spot on. 4 years earlier in the 2016 presidential election, they said Trump would win by 7. He won by 9 when every other poll said it would be tied. And in 2012, they said Obama would win by 5. He won by 6. So, as you see, the out of the 3 presidential races since 2012, 2016, 2020, their biggest miss, their biggest error was in 2016 where they missed it by 2 points. That's incredible. That is an incredible track record. Simply put, they are by far the most accurate pollster in the nation. So to see Ann Selzer's final poll of the 2024 race say that Kamala Harris will win the state of Iowa by 3 points, that is obviously just an absolute shock to the system. As I said, Trump won it by 8% in the 2020 election, in the last election. If it went from +8 to Democrat +3 in 4 years, that would be an 11-point trend in the state of Iowa. So that is what we will be mapping today. What if every state followed in Iowa's steps and did, in fact, trend 11 points towards the Democratic Party? Now, I know not every state would trend the exact same amount as Iowa would, even if Kamala Harris does end up winning the state of Iowa by 3 points. But for simplistic purposes, of course, we can't go through each one and look at the trend over the past few years. That would be way too long. But if this poll is accurate, this map will really give us a grasp of how the nation will look if Ann Selzer did, in fact, get this poll spot on. Simply put, it will be an absolute landslide for Kamala Harris. So, first things first, Iowa, obviously, is a 3-point victory. That's a lean margin victory for Kamala Harris in the state of Iowa. The first time since the 2012 election, any Democrat has won the state of Iowa. Hillary Clinton did not. Joe Biden did not in 2020. That would be an absolute massive upset. So let's start, of course, with the safe Democratic states that Biden won by a safe margin, which is a 15% higher margin or more in 2020. And as I said, this is every state becoming 11 points more Democratic in 2024 than they were in 2020. That is what this video is. So there you have it. Those are all the safe Democratic states. Of course, every state that was safe in 2020, only the margin is only going to go up for Kamala Harris if she's gaining 11 points. But Donald Trump has some states where even if Harris is gaining 11 points, they don't fall to a new characterization. They are remaining a safe state. So you could see Wyoming was a huge margin. Idaho, even if she gains 11 points, it is still a 19-point margin. She has quite a few states. Donald Trump has quite a few states like that, but not nearly as many compared to Kamala Harris. He'll win, not Nebraska at large. That'd be reduced to likely. Let's see. Oklahoma, I believe. Yes, Oklahoma. You would have Arkansas. No, not Arkansas. So many states would then become likely. It's not even funny how many. I mean, all of these states are going to be reduced to under 15% margins to make them likely. Literally all of these. The only one on the side that we haven't already characterized is the state of Oklahoma. That is the only one. And Arkansas. Oklahoma and Arkansas would both remain safe states. But as you can see, all these other red states are now likely, as well as West Virginia. So you can see Kamala Harris, just based off of her 2020 Biden safe state, she's already at 187. Trump is only at 31. This will be an absolute landslide if Ann Selzer is in fact correct about her rating in Iowa. Now, the Democrats have quite a few more safe states than just what Biden won in 2020. For example, the most easy example to point out is Colorado. Joe Biden won Colorado by 13.5% in 2020. If Harris is gaining 11 points, she's winning Colorado by almost 25%. Again, a massive blowout. But it's not just Colorado. Basically every likely state, yes, literally every likely state from 2020 would go to Kamala Harris by over a 15% margin. So that was, these are states that were once looking actually competitive when Biden was the presumptive Democratic nominee this year. New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, Maine, New Hampshire. For the first time in years, these would become safe. You would look to Nebraska's 2nd district. That would be a safe state for the for the Harris campaign as well. And with that being said, they're now at 232 electoral votes. Just after safe states, they're almost at 270. That is absolutely insane. As for Donald Trump, we're going to move on to likely states now because he has quite a few states that he won by a very solid margin in 2020, but losing 11 points would be disastrous nationwide. He would lose the safe rating characterization in Montana. That would be reduced to a 10-point victory. Utah would be reduced to a 10-point victory. Kansas would be reduced. It's not even a likely margin. Kansas would be in lean margin territory. You would have Nebraska's first go into lean margin territory. However, you would have Missouri go into lean margin territory as well. Sorry, I'm giving these away. But the rest of these states down here, the deep southern states, at least for Donald Trump, they would be likely states. That's Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana. Look at that belt of likely states. You never see these deep southern states plus Indiana as likely Republican. But in this case, Donald Trump would, and still he's only at 94 electoral votes, plus Nebraska's 2nd district. I'm sorry, Nebraska at large, that is. So after Donald Trump's likely states, we haven't even characterized Kamala Harris's likely states. And this, I'm sure, as you would guess, puts her well over the top, well over 270, and she is elected president. These traditional swing states that you have heard so much about this election being completely tied, from Pennsylvania, her being down by 0.2, to Wisconsin, her being up by 0.8, they're absolute blowouts. If, in fact, the nation does shift 11 points with Ann Selzer's poll with the state of Iowa, you would have Michigan go from a Biden plus 2.8% margin in 2020 to then a Harris plus 13.8% margin in Michigan. It's not even close. It's a blowout. Pennsylvania would be a 12.2% margin for Kamala Harris, and Nevada would also be right up there. Just about a 12.4% victory there. They're not even close. They're almost safe, but not quite there. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, but it expands. These razor-thin states from 2020, Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, they're just about 50-50, but if Harris is gaining 11 points from 2020, she's winning all of these states. These three, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, razor-thin margins in 2020, she's winning them now by about 11 percentage points if she's gaining that from 2020. They make them likely. Now they're not so much different from Nevada and Michigan and Pennsylvania. It's a marginal difference. Not only that, she's already at over 300 electoral votes, but not only that, you're looking at North Carolina, a state we've been talking about. Can Kamala Harris flip it? It would go to her by 10 points. Trump won it by 1.3. She would win it by 9.7 percentage points. Not so competitive after all. So that leaves us with only a handful of states left. They make up a combined 117 electoral votes, all of which voted for Donald Trump by very substantial margins in the last election. Now, first and foremost, we're going to start with Donald Trump's lean states. These are 1 to 5% margins for Trump. So they're close. These are getting close, and these are ones that, Harris could possibly flip with an error. So these states, again, Harris is gaining 11 points from 2020. So states like Kansas, would be reduced to a 3.6% margin for Trump. In Kansas, in deep red Kansas, just in 2012, Romney won it by 22 points. It is now being reduced to a 3.6% margin if, again, this is completely hypothetical, if the nation shifts with Ann Selzer's poll. This is not a prediction, by the way, by any means, so do not be that person that comments that. So Kansas is lean Republican. Very similar situation in Nebraska's 1st district. In Missouri, that would be reduced to a 4.4% victory. And I believe that's it. But Missouri, lean margin. Nebraska's 1st district, somehow a lean margin there. Now let's move on over to South Carolina on the eastern seaboard. Trump won it by 11 points in 2020, 11.7%, because that margin does matter. If Harris is gaining 11 points, that margin would be reduced to 0.7%. South Carolina, a safe Republican state, reduced to just a 0.7% margin for Donald Trump. Absolutely insane. Going up now, near Canada, Maine's 2nd congressional district voted for Trump by 7.4%. This is a flip. Harris is going to win this one by about 4 percentage points. Maine's 2nd flips to Kamala Harris, the 2nd flip, or the 3rd after Iowa and North Carolina. Now let's move on down to Ohio, near the Great Lakes. Ohio, critical 17 electoral votes, once a swing state, but, we have developed this notion that Donald Trump has made it a partisan Republican state, but if it follows with Iowa, that would not be true at all. In fact, Iowa and Ohio voted by extremely similar amounts in 2020, only separated by 0.2%, a fifth of a percentage point. So, again, if Iowa is lean Democrat, of course, Ohio will be as well. That is a 3-point margin for Kamala Harris in Ohio. Another flip there. And then we're left with only 3 states, 2 of which are huge. So let's do Alaska. Alaska voted for Trump by 10 points. Get this. If Harris is gaining 11, she wins it by 0.9%. That's the first time a Democrat has won Alaska since when? I don't even know. Got to be 1964. In LBJ's massive landslide across the country. That was the last time a Democrat has won the state of Alaska. But that really puts the emphasis on how insane this landslide would be if Ann Selzer's poll is correct. If it is, and the states follow with the steps that Iowa is taking in terms of its trend towards the Democratic Party, then Alaska would vote Democratic for the first time in 60 years, since the absolute landslide of 1964. Could you imagine that? Alaska would be a 0.9% margin for Kamala Harris, a tilt margin, but a flip nonetheless. And we're left with a combined 70 electoral votes from 2 massive states, Texas and Florida. And, I mean, when you look at the margins quick from 2020, Harris will win both of them very easily. Let's start with Florida. Went to Trump by 3 points. If Harris is gaining 11 points, she's winning it by a likely margin. She's winning it by about 8 points. Florida flips back to the Democratic Party. Texas went to Trump by 5.6% in 2020. If Harris is gaining 11 points, she's winning it by about 5.5%. The margins have completely flipped to the other candidate. Texas goes likely blue as well. So there you have it. It's an absolute landslide. She wins over 3/4 of electoral votes. That's historic. That hasn't happened since probably 1988, I believe, if not 1984. So, to think, if Ann Selzer, the most accurate pollster in the nation, if she is in fact right once again, this will be a historic election year in terms of the landslide. We are looking at an extremely historic landslide for Kamala Harris that will be studied for decades to come. How she did it after just 4 years ago, there was a close election, and 4 years before that, Donald Trump won the election. That is a major point of this video. Again, Ann Selzer, their final poll in 2020 said that Trump would win the state by 7. He ended up winning it by 8. Again, +7, Republican +7. Now, it's Democrat +3. That difference is absolutely astounding, and it could have major implications on how the rest of the nation votes. If you want to argue, it doesn't matter to the Sun Belt or anywhere else, you cannot argue with the fact that how Iowa votes directly translates to how the rest of the Sun Belt, the Rust Belt, will vote. And if Trump isn't able to break a state from the blue wall, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, he can't win the election. If Harris wins the bare minimum blue states plus the blue wall of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, that's 270 electoral votes exactly. That wins her the presidency right there. It's close to 70 to 268, but that's the presidency right there. In order for Donald Trump to win the election, he has to break the blue wall. So if the result is anything near what Ann Selzer's poll says, anything, it could be off by 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, and it would still indicate that Donald Trump would not be able to break the blue wall. What do I mean by that? Well, he won the state of Iowa by 8.2% in the last election. Let's say, at the bare minimum, he needs to win Iowa by 9 points in 2024 in order to break the blue wall. Why? Because Wisconsin voted for Biden by 0.6. If he's gaining 0.9 in Iowa, he can probably gain at least 0.6 in Wisconsin as well, and he therefore wins Wisconsin and could win the presidency, if that makes sense. So let's say he just has to get to 9 points. Well, if he has to win Iowa by 9 points, Ann Selzer's poll would have to be off by 12 points. They say Harris will win by 3. He would have to win by 9. Now look at Ann Selzer's past results. The most they have ever been off in a presidential year, in a presidential election, since 2012, is 2 points in 2016. 2 measly points. Do you really think that this year suddenly they will be off by 12? It's impossible. Donald Trump cannot win the presidency. It's right there. It's in the data. It is impossible. Donald Trump cannot win. It's as simple as that. So, again, this is what the map would look like if you map Ann Selzer's poll. So thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe down below. It helps out a lot. Comment your suggestions as well, and I will see you all later.